Am I the a-hole for moving out after my boyfriend told me I wasn't his first choice? I, 26F, have been with my boyfriend, Nathan, 27M, for 3 years. We met at work, and while it wasn't love at first sight, we quickly became inseparable. He was charming, funny, and always made me feel safe. He had this way of making me feel like I was the most important person in the world. Our relationship wasn't perfect, whose is? But I thought we were solid. We moved in together last year, got a cute little apartment, and started talking about marriage in a vague, someday kind of way. We had our ups and downs, but I never doubted that we were in this together. Then, last week, everything changed. We were at home, just lounging around after dinner, when Nathan got a text from an old friend. He laughed and shook his head, and I playfully asked what was so funny. He told me it was nothing, but I could tell he wanted to share, so I nudged him a little. He sighed and said, "It's just a friend from college." He used to joke that I'd never get over Sophia. I frowned. "Who's Sophia?" He looked at me like I had just asked him who the president was. "You know, Sophia, my ex." Now, I knew he had an ex named Sophia. We all have exes. But he never talked about her in any way that made me think she was important. I shrugged. "Oh, okay. What about her?" Nathan hesitated, then smiled in this weird, almost nostalgic way. He used to say she was the love of my life and that I'd never love anyone the way I loved her. Something about the way he said it made my stomach drop. I forced a laugh. And? Was he right? It was meant to be a joke, a light-hearted tease. But Nathan didn't laugh. Instead, he just kind of looked at me. And then he said, "I mean, yeah, in a way." I don't even know how long I sat there staring at him, but I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. "What do you mean?" Nathan sighed and set his phone down. "Look, I love you, okay? I do. But Sophia was different. She was my first love, and for a long time, I thought she was my person. If things had worked out, I probably would have married her. But they didn't. And then I met you, and I moved on. I chose you." It was the most casual, devastating thing I'd ever heard. "You chose me?" I repeated. "Yeah," he said, as if this was a good thing. "You were the right choice. The mature choice." Sophia was intense and unpredictable. It never would have lasted. But with you, I feel stable. Happy. It's not about some crazy, passionate, once-in-a-lifetime thing. It's about building a life with someone who makes sense. I didn't even know what to say. For 3 years, I had believed that I was his person, that we had something real, something that wasn't just a second-place consolation prize. And now he was sitting here, telling me that I wasn't his first choice, that I was the safe option. I don't even remember how the rest of the conversation went. I just know that I went to bed feeling like a placeholder in my own relationship. The next morning, I told him I needed space. I packed a bag and went to stay at my sister's for a few days. He kept calling, texting, telling me I was overreacting, that he didn't mean it like that he loved me, and that's what mattered. But does it? Does it really matter if I was just the best available choice rather than the one he actually wanted? Here's where it gets complicated. A few days after I left, I started thinking about our whole relationship differently. And when I did, I realized there were signs I had ignored. Little things Nathan had said or done that suddenly made a lot more sense. Like how he never deleted old pictures of Sophia from his phone, even after I told him it made me uncomfortable. Or how he would sometimes bring up her name when talking about old college memories, even though he claimed they hadn't spoken in years. Or how, one time, I saw a message request from her on his Facebook, and when I asked about it, he just said, "It's nothing," and deleted it without showing me. And then, 2 days ago, I found out something that made everything so much worse. I was at my sister's place when I got a call from one of my old coworkers, Jenna. She and I weren't super close, but we still kept in touch every now and then. She sounded hesitant. like she wasn't sure if she should even be telling me what she was about to say. "Hey, I know you're going through some stuff with Nathan, and I don't want to make things worse," she started. "But I was out with some friends last night, and I think I saw something you should know about." My stomach was already in knots. "What is it?" She hesitated. "I saw Nathan at a bar with a girl. And look, I don't know for sure who she was, but it really looked like Sophia." I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was just too ridiculous to be real. "You're kidding." I wish I was. I wasn't going to say anything, but when I saw them, it didn't look like two exes catching up. It looked intimate. I only saw them for a few minutes, but there was definitely something there. I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath me. I thanked Jenna and hung up, but I couldn't move. My mind was racing. Nathan had sworn he hadn't talked to Sophia in years. He had told me she was in the past, that he had chosen me, that she was just a memory. But now he was out at a bar with her, acting intimate. I tried to be rational. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe he ran into her, and they had a drink to catch up. But deep down, I knew better. That I checked his location on my phone. We had shared locations for safety reasons, and I never really thought much about it before. But now, seeing his pin at a bar across town late at night, I felt sick that I didn't text him. I didn't call. I just sat there, staring at my phone, wondering how I had been so blind. The next day, I went back to our apartment while he was at work. I needed to think, to clear my head. But the second I stepped inside, it didn't feel like home anymore. Everything felt tainted. I wandered into the bedroom, trying to decide if I should grab more of my stuff or just leave it for now. That's when I noticed his laptop was still open on the desk. I knew I shouldn't invade his privacy. I knew it, but something in me snapped that I opened his messages, and there she was, Sophia. Their conversation wasn't long, but it was enough. "Nathan, it was really good seeing you. I've missed you. Sophia. I've missed you too." Last night felt familiar. "Nathan. It did. I don't know what to think right now. Sophia. Maybe you don't have to think. Maybe you just have to feel." That I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking. I didn't even cry. I just stood there, staring at nothing, realizing that the person I had spent the last 3 years with wasn't who I thought he was. I started packing my things immediately. I was done. I didn't even stop to think about whether I was overreacting or if I should wait for an explanation. I just knew I couldn't stay. I grabbed a suitcase from under the bed and started shoving clothes into it. I wasn't even being careful. I just wanted to get as much as I could as fast as possible. Halfway through, I realized my hands were still shaking. My chest felt tight and my head was spinning, but I kept going. Halfway through packing, I heard the front door unlock. Nathan wasn't supposed to be home yet. I froze for a second, but then I forced myself to keep moving. I didn't care if he caught me. I didn't care if he had some excuse lined up. Nothing he said would change the fact that I had just read those messages. "Nora?" He sounded confused, like he wasn't expecting to see me. Then his voice changed when he saw the suitcase. "What are you doing?" I didn't even look at him. "Packing? For what?" He let out a nervous laugh, like this was some misunderstanding. "Come on, are you really still upset about what I said the other night?" I turned to face him, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel anything looking at him. No warmth, no love, just this hollow feeling that made my stomach turn. "I saw your messages, Nathan." His face paled, just for a second. Then he shook his head and scoffed. "You went through my laptop? Are you really going to act like that's the problem here?" I snapped. "You lied to me. You said she was in the past. And then you go out with her and send her messages like that? After telling me I wasn't your first choice?" Nathan ran a hand through his hair. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I said. "You're still in love with her. You never stopped being in love with her. And you've been keeping me around because I was the safe option." He opened his mouth, then closed it. I could see the wheels turning in his head, trying to figure out what to say to make this go away. Nora, I love you, he finally said. I just got caught up in the moment. It doesn't mean anything. Seeing her brought up a lot of memories, but that's all they are. Memories. I chose you. I still choose you. I stared at him. He really thought that was enough. He thought I would just accept that and move on like nothing happened. You don't get to choose me anymore, I said quietly. For the first time, real panic flashed across his face. Come on, don't do this. We've built a life together. You're really going to throw it all away over one conversation? I let out a bitter laugh. I should have left the second you told me I wasn't your first choice. I should have known then that I would never really be enough for you. He stepped closer, but I grabbed my suitcase and walked past him. He didn't try to stop me. When I got to the door, I turned back one last time. I hope she was worth it. And then I walked out. I didn't even look back as I walked out of the apartment. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there. I needed space, even if I had nowhere specific in mind. I got in my car, drove aimlessly for a while, letting the weight of everything settle around me. After a while, I ended up at the beach. It was late afternoon, and the sun was starting to set, casting the sky in a mix of pinks and oranges. I parked the car and sat there, staring out at the ocean. I didn't know what I was supposed to do next. How was I supposed to just go on? For 3 years, I had given everything to this relationship, convinced that it was real, that it was something I could trust. Now, everything felt like a lie. I didn't want to be alone, but I also didn't want to talk to anyone. Not yet. I needed to process it all. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was Nathan. I stared at the screen for a second, then put the phone down without replying. I didn't want to hear what he had to say, but then it buzzed again and again. Finally, I gave in and picked it up. I almost regretted it the moment I saw the message. Nathan, please, just talk to me. I set the phone down again, my mind racing. Was I really going to let him do this? Was I really going to let him come back and convince me everything would be okay? I knew I couldn't, but then I wondered if I was being too harsh. Maybe it was just a mistake. Maybe it didn't mean anything. Maybe he really did love me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that none of it mattered. His actions told me everything I needed to know. I drove back to my sister's place late that night, still unsure of what to do next. I wasn't ready to go back to the apartment. I wasn't ready to face Nathan, to let him explain himself and try to win me over with more words that felt empty. When I walked into my sister's apartment, she looked up from the couch. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft but full of concern. I shrugged, sitting down next to her. "I don't know anymore." She didn't push me for details, just sat there with me in silence. The next few days passed in a blur of uncertainty. Nathan kept calling and texting, trying to get me to talk to him, to come back. He apologized over and over again, telling me that he loved me and didn't want to lose me. But every apology felt like it was just a way to make himself feel better. Every "I love you" felt like a way to pull me back into his world so he wouldn't have to deal with the consequences of what he'd done. I knew I couldn't go back, but the idea of moving on felt so impossible. A week passed. I started looking for a new apartment, though I wasn't sure I was ready for that either. It felt like my entire life had been flipped upside down. Then, out of nowhere, I got a message from someone I didn't expect to hear from. Sophia. I stared at the message for what felt like an eternity, unsure of what to do. Why was she reaching out to me? I hadn't expected that. After everything with Nathan, the last person I wanted to hear from was his ex. Her message was short, almost too casual. "Sophia, hey, I know this might seem weird, but I think we need to talk." That I didn't reply right away. I had no idea what she wanted to talk about. Was she going to defend Nathan? Was she going to apologize for being the reason everything had fallen apart? I didn't know, But I was so done with the mess Nathan had created that part of me just wanted to ignore her entirely. But another part of me was curious. I couldn't deny that I was tangled up in all of this, and maybe hearing what she had to say would give me some clarity. After a long pause, I tapped out a response to me. Why now? After all this time? A few minutes passed before she replied. Sophia, I didn't want to be the one to reach out, but things between Nathan and I have never really been what he's told you. It's not what you think. I froze. What did that mean? Was Nathan lying to both of us? Was there more to this situation than I had realized? Sophia, I think you deserve to know the truth. At this point, I had no idea what truth she was talking about, but I couldn't ignore the feeling in my gut. I was already in the middle of a storm, so what did it matter if I got a little wetter? Me. Fine. What do you want to tell me? Sophia, can we meet in person? It's better that way. I was hesitant, but I agreed. I didn't trust her, but I didn't trust Nathan anymore either, and I needed answers. We agreed to meet at a small cafe in the afternoon. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I prepared myself for anything. When I arrived, Sophia was already sitting at a table by the window. She was different than I had imagined, calm, composed, almost distant in a way. Not the emotional person I thought she might be. She stood up as I approached. Nora, thanks for meeting with me. I nodded, still unsure what to think. I took a seat across from her, my hands tightly gripping my purse. Look, she began, not wasting any time. I'm not here to make you feel bad, and I'm not here to throw Nathan under the bus. But you need to understand something about him. I leaned forward slightly, heart pounding in my chest. Sophia took a deep breath before continuing. Nathan and I were never over. Not really. He told you that you were his safe choice, right? That's because he still had feelings for me when you two got together. I felt a wave of nausea roll through me, but I forced myself to stay composed. What are you saying? That you two never really broke up? Sophia hesitated. No, we broke up, but Nathan never really let go of me. We've always had an on-again, off-again thing. And I know that sounds terrible, but it's the truth. He was with you because you were easier, because you weren't the same chaos I was. But the whole time, he was holding on to the idea of us. I felt like the ground had shifted beneath me again. Everything I had thought was solid was now crumbling away. So you're telling me that while he was with me, he was still in love with you? Sophia nodded slowly. I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but I think you deserve to know the truth. Nathan, he's not the guy he pretends to be. I barely heard her last words. My mind was racing too fast. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Everything felt like a lie, but there was one thing I knew for sure. Nathan had never been honest with me. And now, everything felt tainted. I stood up abruptly, my hands trembling. Thanks for telling me this, but I think I need to go. Sophia didn't try to stop me. She just watched as I walked out of the cafe. Not looking back, that I didn't know what to do next, but I knew one thing. I was done. I sat in my car for a long time, parked near the river, the city lights flickering in the distance. My thoughts were a whirlwind of anger and disbelief. Nathan had lied, and I had let him. Sophia wasn't a distant memory like he'd made me believe. I had spent all this time trusting him, giving him the best of me, while he was tangled up in feelings for someone else. I knew I needed to leave. The apartment, Nathan, everything that reminded me of him. It was too much, but I couldn't make myself go anywhere. I didn't know where to go anymore. Finally, I drove home. It felt like I was walking into a completely different world, as if the space I had shared with Nathan was no longer mine. It was just a place filled with broken promises and half-truths. I walked in quietly, expecting to find him either gone or sitting there, waiting for me. Instead, I found him on the couch, looking like he had been holding his breath the entire time. When he saw me, he stood up, his expression pleading. Nora, please. I didn't know how to look at him anymore. There were so many things I wanted to say, but none of them felt like they would make a difference. I know what you're going to say, I said flatly. I saw the messages. His face tightened. He wasn't ready for this. He was still clinging to the hope that I'd just forgive him, that I'd understand. I never wanted to hurt you, he said, his voice strained. I wasn't thinking clearly. I swear, I love you. I don't know what happened. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. You didn't know what happened? Nathan, you've been in love with her the whole time. I was just the rebound, the safe choice. No, that's not how it was, he insisted, stepping closer. But I held my ground. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could move on, but seeing her again, it brought everything back. You never moved on, I said, voice tight with emotion. You just kept lying to me, pretending like you were over her. You didn't want me, Nathan. You wanted her. And I was just here because it was easier. His face crumbled, like he hadn't expected me to be so angry, so done. But I wasn't looking for his guilt or his apologies. I didn't need them anymore. I should have never stayed, I continued. I should have left the moment you said I wasn't your first choice. But I was too blind, too desperate to believe that maybe you'd choose me eventually. He was quiet for a long moment. Please, don't leave, he whispered. But I could hear the desperation in his voice. He was losing control, and it was clear that he didn't want to face the consequences of his own actions. But I wasn't about to let him drag me back in. I'm done, Nathan, I said, my voice firm, finally giving myself the closure I had been desperately seeking. I deserve someone who doesn't look at me as second best. I didn't give him a chance to respond. I turned on my heel and walked out of the apartment, leaving him standing there in the silence I had been drowning in for months. I didn't go far. I drove to a quiet spot by the beach, where I sat for hours trying to put the pieces together. Everything felt so surreal. I thought I had known Nathan. I thought I knew what love was, but it turned out that I was wrong. The next day, I took some of my things from the apartment, things I still needed to sort through. Nathan wasn't there when I went in. It was strange, like he had just vanished from my life, leaving me to pick up the pieces of everything he had broken. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know if I was strong enough to move on, to face whatever came next. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let Nathan keep me trapped in his lies anymore. I was at the grocery store the next day, trying to do something normal, like pick up eggs and bread. It felt mundane, almost like a ritual to ground myself after everything had exploded. I didn't want to be thinking about Nathan or the mess he had created, but it was hard to focus on anything else. I was walking down the aisle, scanning the shelves, when I bumped into someone. Whoa, sorry, I mumbled, looking up to find myself face to face with someone I hadn't seen in years, Sophia. She didn't look the same. Her hair was shorter, and there was a calmness about her that I hadn't expected. But the moment I saw her, I froze. She hesitated, like she wasn't sure if she should even speak to me. I couldn't blame her. After all, the last time we had crossed paths was when I had found out Nathan was still hung up on her. That was an encounter I'd never forget. Hey, she said finally, her voice quieter than I remembered. I didn't expect to see you here. I didn't know how to respond. Seeing her brought up a rush of emotions, anger, confusion, but also something else, something I couldn't quite name. Was it curiosity? Regret? Yeah, I said, not really sure how to handle this. Guess we both need some groceries. She smiled a little, but there was a hesitation behind it. How are you holding up? I gave a tight smile, not sure if I was ready to unpack everything in front of her. I didn't know her anything, especially after everything with Nathan. I'm fine, I said, the words coming out flatter than I intended. Just trying to move on. Sophia nodded, her expression softening. I get it. I didn't want to be the one to complicate things, but I couldn't let you keep thinking everything was my fault. I blinked, taken aback by the sudden shift in her tone. I was expecting some defensive remark, or maybe her trying to minimize what had happened, but instead, she seemed genuinely sincere. I'm not here to make excuses for Nathan, and I know it probably doesn't help, but I didn't know about you. Not really. She paused, looking at me with a mixture of apology and something else, something I couldn't place. He never told me about you the way he should have. It was always more complicated than he led you to believe. I didn't know how to respond. What was I supposed to say to that? Part of me wanted to scream, to ask her why it mattered now, why she was even talking to me after everything. Another part of me felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as much of the enemy as I had made her out to be. I don't know if I should even care about what you have to say, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But I don't need any more lies. She took a deep breath, as if bracing herself. You're right. You don't need to hear my side of things. But I'm asking for your forgiveness, not for me, but because I know what it's like to be lied to by him. He never told me the full truth about anything. He always made it seem like it was my fault, that I was the one who couldn't let go. And maybe I couldn't at the time, but I see it now. I'm sorry, Nora. Her apology wasn't what I expected. It wasn't the typical, I'm sorry for everything that people toss around like it's a magic fix. There was real weight behind it. She seemed like she genuinely regretted the way things had gone down. And maybe that wasn't enough to make me forget everything with Nathan, but it was something. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that, I admitted, feeling the weight of her words sinking in. I don't even know if I care anymore. It's all just a mess. Sophia nodded slowly, accepting that. I get that. But if you ever need someone to talk to about anything, I'll be here. I won't try to fix it. I won't try to make you feel better. But I know what it's like to be in that situation. And if it helps at all, you don't have to go through it alone. There was silence between us for a few moments. I wasn't sure what to say. I wasn't sure if I wanted to take her up on her offer. But there was something about her honesty that made me think she wasn't the villain I had made her out to be. Finally, I nodded slowly, even though I still wasn't sure what any of this meant. Thanks, I said, my voice softer than I expected. I'll keep that in mind. We both stood there for a moment, the tension in the air almost palpable. Then, as if on some unspoken cue, we both started to turn toward the aisles, going our separate ways. As I picked up my things and made my way to the checkout, I couldn't help but feel like maybe, just maybe, I was starting to piece things together. Nathan had hurt me. Sophia had her own role in all of it. But in the end, it wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. And I was done being stuck in the past. When I left the store, the air felt a little lighter, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. The next few days were a blur. I stayed with my sister for a while, trying to get my bearings. The apartment felt like a different world, like it wasn't even mine anymore. I couldn't bear the thought of going back there yet, so I let myself get lost in the little things. Working on my art, watching movies, cooking meals I hadn't made in ages. It wasn't perfect, but it was the closest to peace I had felt in a long time. Then, one afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. My stomach dropped as I stared at the screen, but I didn't know why. Nathan had been calling me nonstop since I left, but this number wasn't his. Something about it felt like it had the potential to change things. I answered it, unsure of what to expect. Hello? Nora? The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, but there was something in it that made me pause. It was calm, almost too calm. Yes? I said, my heart racing. Who is this? This is James, the voice said, a slight hesitation before the name. I'm a friend of Nathan's. I need to talk to you about something important. I didn't know what to think. Another one of Nathan's friends? What could possibly be important enough for him to get involved? The last thing I wanted to do was talk to anyone who was still connected to him. "Why are you calling me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Because it's about Nathan," James said, and for the first time, there was a slight edge to his voice. "And I think you need to hear the truth." I froze. The truth? Hadn't I heard enough of that already? "Why would I listen to you?" I asked, my irritation flaring. "What could you possibly tell me that Nathan hasn't already tried to lie about?" James sighed, and I could hear the weight of it in his voice. "Because this isn't just about Nathan. It's about something you don't know. Something he hasn't told you." My curiosity was piqued despite myself, though my instinct screamed to hang up. But something told me this conversation wasn't going to be like all the others. "I don't know if I want to hear whatever you have to say," I said, trying to pull myself together. "Listen, I'm not trying to cause more trouble, but Nathan's been keeping something from you. Something important, and I think you need to know." I wasn't sure what was worse, continuing to ignore this, or getting dragged back into Nathan's mess. But after everything, I knew I couldn't keep pretending like I wasn't still tangled up in it all. "Okay," I finally said, my voice tight. "Tell me." He was quiet for a moment, as if weighing his words carefully. "Nathan was never really over you. Not the way he should have been. But you weren't the only one he was stringing along. There's more to Sophia and him than you know. Something he hasn't been honest about." I could feel the blood drain from my face. "What do you mean?" "I can't go into all the details, but let's just say Nathan made some choices that he regrets," James said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "And they aren't just about you and Sophia. He's been dealing with something he never told anyone about, something he couldn't face. I don't know all of it, but I know enough to tell you that if you think this is all on him, it's not. He's been carrying guilt about this for a long time, and it's been eating at him." I was struggling to process everything. Was James just trying to get me to forgive Nathan? Was he trying to make him seem like the victim in all of this? "Are you telling me this because you think I should feel sorry for him?" I asked, the anger creeping back into my voice. "No," James said quickly. "I'm telling you this because I don't think you understand how much Nathan's been hiding, not just from you, but from everyone. And I don't think you can move on until you know the full truth." His words lingered in the air, heavy with something I couldn't quite grasp. I had spent so much time trying to understand Nathan and his lies, trying to put together a puzzle that didn't make sense. But what James was saying felt different. This wasn't about Sophia anymore. This wasn't even about Nathan's mistakes. This was something deeper. "I don't know if I want to know all of this," I said, feeling a little lost. "You don't have to," James replied, "but I think it's going to eat at you if you don't. I just wanted to give you a choice. And if you want to talk more about this, I'll be around." With that, he hung up, and I was left standing there, feeling more confused than ever. The air around me felt charged, like something was waiting to happen, something that I couldn't avoid anymore. I spent the rest of the day lost in thought, turning over his words again and again. Was Nathan carrying some kind of deep secret that had kept him from being the person I thought he was? Was I really ready to confront that? But more importantly, did I want to? I didn't know the answer yet, but I had a feeling that I wouldn't be able to ignore it much longer. The next few days felt like I was living in a fog. I went through the motions: work, errands, spending time with my sister, but everything felt distant. I couldn't shake what James had told me. His words echoed in my mind like a dull hum that wouldn't fade. Nathan had secrets. Worse, he had been hiding something important from me, something that went beyond the mess with Sophia. And for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't sure if I wanted to know the truth. But as much as I tried to push it aside, I couldn't ignore it. The idea of Nathan being this different person, someone I didn't really know, kept eating at me. Was I just some casualty in his tangled web of lies? Had I really meant anything to him? Or was I just another chapter in his long history of mistakes? One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. Not from James, not from anyone else, but from Nathan. If he really was carrying all this guilt, if there really was something he had never shared with me, I needed to hear it from him. I couldn't keep wondering, couldn't keep living in this limbo of half-truths. I pulled out my phone and stared at Nathan's number. It had been days since I last spoke to him, and I knew he was probably hoping I'd call him. Maybe he thought time would heal the rift between us, but the reality was nothing could fix what he'd done. Still, something inside me urged me to reach out. To give him one last chance to tell his side of the story, I hesitated for a long moment, then finally pressed the call button. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. Nora? His voice was tentative, like he wasn't sure what I was going to say. Yeah, it's me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but the anger was there, simmering beneath the surface. We need to talk. There was a long pause. I could hear him take a breath, like he was bracing himself. I've been waiting for you to reach out, he said quietly. I've been trying to figure out how to explain everything. I never meant for any of this to happen, Nora. I swear. I clenched my jaw, resisting the urge to hang up right then and there. I don't want to hear your excuses, Nathan, I snapped. I just want the truth. All of it. He was quiet for a long time, and I wondered if he was trying to find the right words or if he was just stalling. Finally, he spoke again, his voice rougher than before. Okay, he said. You deserve that much. I leaned back against the wall, my heart pounding as I braced myself for whatever was coming. Nora, the truth is, I've never been over Sophia. Not really, he admitted, his words spilling out in a rush. I thought I was. But when she came back into the picture, everything I had buried just came back up. And I know that's not an excuse for what I did. It's not. But I couldn't bring myself to tell you the truth because I didn't want to lose you. I wanted to have both of you, but I knew deep down that I couldn't. I felt a surge of anger, but I forced myself to stay quiet, to let him keep talking. Nathan, I said, my voice low but steady, you should have told me. You should have been honest with me from the start. I know, he said, his voice almost breaking. I was selfish. I didn't think it through. I was scared that if I told you the truth, you'd leave, and I didn't want to lose you. But I also didn't want to lose Sophia. And now, I've lost both of you. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm that was raging inside me. You don't get to do that, Nathan. You don't get to keep me hanging on while you figure out what you want. You never gave me the chance to decide what I wanted because you never gave me the truth. You should have respected me enough to tell me from the beginning. He was quiet again, and I could hear the regret in his silence. I never meant to hurt you, Nora. I swear. Well, you did, I replied, my voice sharp. And now it's too late. There was a long pause, and for a moment, I thought he was going to say something else, plead with me, beg me to reconsider. But he didn't. Okay, he said finally, his voice sounding defeated. I understand. I just wanted you to know that I never meant for it to end this way. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to hear his apologies anymore, didn't want to relive all the pain. But something about the finality of his words felt like it was closing a door I wasn't ready to shut. You should have been honest with me, Nathan, I said, my voice trembling with emotion. But I can't keep doing this. I can't keep waiting for you to choose me. I understand, he said quietly. Goodbye, Nora. And just like that, the line went dead and I sat there for a long time, phone still pressed to my ear, trying to absorb everything that had just happened. There were no more words, no more explanations, just silence. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream, but instead, I let the tears fall silently, feeling a strange sense of relief mixed with the ache of all the things I couldn't change. Nathan had been a chapter in my life, and it was finally time to close that book. The days after that conversation were a blur of emotions, but one thing became clear. I was done. I had spent so much time trying to make sense of Nathan's actions, trying to understand his side of things, but in the end, the truth was simple. He didn't respect me enough to be honest. He didn't care enough to put me first. And that was something I couldn't keep forgiving. I started making plans for the future. I wasn't sure where I was headed, but I knew it was better than staying stuck in the past. I moved into a new apartment, not far from my sister's place, and started rebuilding my life from the ground up. I focused on my work, my friendships, and rediscovered things I had put on hold for too long. For the first time in ages, I felt like I was finally living for myself. But then, a few weeks later, I ran into someone from Nathan's side of things. One of his friends, actually. They didn't say much, but there was a look in their eyes, a knowing kind of look, like they were waiting for me to come to my senses and realize what I'd lost. It made me wonder if people were still expecting me to go back to Nathan, to fix things, to forgive him. It's been a while now, and I'm still not sure if I did the right thing. I know I had to walk away, but part of me still wonders, was I too harsh? Did I make the right choice, or was I just too quick to burn bridges? I know I'm better off, but I can't help but question if I handled it the best way. So, Reddit, here's my question. Am I the a-hole for leaving Nathan after everything? Did I overreact, or was it a necessary decision for my own peace? I'd really appreciate some honest opinions. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real-life drama, make sure to like and subscribe. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Was the decision to leave Nathan the right one, or was there a better way to handle it? Don't forget to share with your friends if you think they'd love a good story about relationships and tough choices.